Okay, welcome back to On the Ball, the video podcast series from the Vanderbilt Sports and Society Initiative. I'm Andrew Maraniss, and I am really excited to have LJ Rader with us today. He's the Director of Product Insights and Analytics at Sports Radar, previously with NBC Sports, DraftKings, among others. But I think he's probably, would you say you're best known for your side hustle? Um, where on social media, you know LJ as the force behind Art But Make It Sports, which is an account that I've followed on Twitter through our Sports and Society initiative here for several years and have found to be so enjoyable. And just recently learned that you're a Vanderbilt alum, so there's a connection. And LJ, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Um, So I mentioned you are a Vanderbilt graduate, 2011, is that right? From Peabody?
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. It's like coming up on 15 years, I guess, but 2011, yeah.
Yeah, man. Where are you from? Like, how'd you end up at Vanderbilt?
It's a good question. I am from New York, roughly 45 minutes outside of the city. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go to school or what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I wanted to be a teacher. And I remember my dad had looked up rankings for education programs and called me and said, "Oh, have you ever heard of Vanderbilt?" I was like, "Oh, Jay Cutler." Um, that's like the only connection being from the north. Uh, and then he's like, "Oh, we should go look at it. It's ranked high on the education list." And stepped on campus and fell in love and ended up not being an education major, but was in the Peabody School, and I think right around the time they were starting to recruit more folks from the Northeast. And yeah, it was one of I know there were people that kind of came before me, but it felt like one of the early waves, and so very much a different a little bit of a culture shock, but.
Yep.
Uh, loved my time there and loved Nashville. I know it's changed a lot in the last almost 15 years, but yeah, proud Commodore.
Proud Commodore. All right. So you mentioned Jay Cutler was one of your touch points when you thought of Vanderbilt. We're going to talk about Art But Make It Sports. So you're clearly a sports fan. When you were here on campus, what was your involvement with the sports world here? And what was your involvement with fine arts? It doesn't sound like you were, an art major while you're in school.
Yeah, so I was part of the Vandy Fanatics group for maybe 2 years, doing little things here and there, and then wrote a little bit for the Vanderbilt Hustler. And then the other, I guess, sports connection was through my HOD internship. I was at WTVF, the CBS affiliate, in Nashville. And so we covered Vanderbilt sports and Predators and a few of the local high schools. And then I took an art class, Art History 101, I think Professor Schoenfeld. And I remember I told my parents I want to minor in it or major in it, and they asked me if I wanted to work in art. I said I don't think so. They're like, why don't you study that on your own time? Which at the time, or now looking back, was pretty good advice. So I sort of had always loved art, but definitely helped push me towards where I am now. But yeah, that's kind of my connection.
Oh, I'm going back even further. I mean, growing up in the New York area, first on the art side, we'll cover the sports side too, but I mean, no shortage of great museums, right? Or even galleries. I mean, what was your exposure to the world of art as a kid?
Yeah, my grandma was a big time supporter of the arts. My grandfather, his family owned a garage in the village in New York, like a parking garage. And this was before the village became what it is now. There's lots of
Mhm.
starving artists back in the day, and they used to barter their art for parking spots. So
Yeah.
my grandparents randomly, very middle class, normal people, but randomly had a pretty impressive collection of fine arts. And yeah, I used to love going to their house. They had sort of a little interesting setup and architecture, and yeah, fell in love with art and going to museums. And as a kid, you're sort of, I don't know, more gravitate towards probably the science museum and museum of natural history. But I do enjoy going to, or have always sort of enjoyed going to the art museum sites as well.
Well, that's cool. Do you consider yourself an artist yourself?
I guess so. I mean, there's definitely an artistry to what I do. I'd say potentially a little bit of a curator as well. But I think part of the beauty of the account is it sort of shows you can find art in anything, and anybody can be an artist, even if you maybe don't know how to paint in the traditional sculpt in the traditional sense of what we see as artists. But um, yeah, I don't really think about it much. But if you were to say, you got to answer the question, I'd say yeah.
All right. Then how about from a sports background? You had like a Yankees, Giants, Mets, Jets of a combo. What are your teams?
Big Knicks fan. I am a Yankees fan.
All
Yankees
right.
sure it's a big game tonight. I
Yep.
am a Giants fan, a Liberty fan. So I was there on Sunday. Uh, I like the Preds. I don't really. I know going to Rangers games are fun, but um, when the Preds had their run a few years back, I guess more than a few years now. But we used to go to games in college. I remember it was before they were good. I want to say they were like $20 for center ice and a hot dog and like a beer. And that included the ticket. So um yeah, I'm trying to think what other I like Tottenham, but they're trash, so it doesn't not even worth mentioning. And then obviously Vanderbilt sports. So
Yeah. All right. So you've got your credentials, like you're legit as a sports fan, as an art connoisseur. For those who don't know, Art But Make It Sports, I follow on Twitter, and you'll have either a screenshot or a photograph of a moment, typically from a sporting event. It could be fans in the crowd. Even you had a great one recently of was it a Cowboys fan throwing up in the middle of that loss to Detroit today. And you'll match it up with a work of art going back hundreds of years, right? That mimic really closely what we're seeing in that sports picture. It's just a really fun account to follow. So you've obviously built a really large following over the years. People are looking forward to what you're going to post. People are suggesting ideas to you. The very first time you did something like this, did you set up the account to share that? Or did you do it from a personal account? Like, how did this very get started the very first time?
yeah, so very much kind of fell into it. I was, I guess, at the rise of Instagram when people would take, filtered selfies and pictures of their food. I'm really into that. And I guess I made my Instagram account kind of things I saw in New York of, people cutting their nails on the subway or snakes on the street, just random things I'd see. And then whenever I'd go to museums, I'd post pictures of art but give them sports captions. Um, and over time had friends basically convinced me to, you should spin this off into its own account. And then did that. And then over time, I found myself sort of captioning a piece of art saying, "Oh, this looks like Philip Rivers screaming." Like, well, what if I just put the picture of Philip Rivers screaming next to the Francis Bacon screaming Pope that I was referencing, and then it started to catch on. So it evolved from kind of captioning on pieces of artwork to doing these more these more matchups.
And I've seen other interviews with you where people assume you're using some sort of AI, to load in a sports picture and then find a work of art that matches it, but that's not the case at all. So how do you how do you do it?
Yeah, it's funny that I always get a chuckle when people accuse me of of using AI because it's not like this thing really makes any money. So part of the reason why I continue to run it is because of the that sort of feeling I get when I come up with that match, which, if a computer was doing that, it sort of, for me, strips away any reason of even running the account. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't use AI. It's first sort of assessing like the the sports imagery that does the best are things that are in the moment. So, for example, when Vandy beat Alabama, that was all anybody on my Twitter timeline and on Instagram was talking about, even outside of my Vanderbilt sort of bubble that I follow. So for me, it's important to sort of put together my take and inject it into the conversation of what's going on.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, this year in the summer we had the Olympics and Euros, so there's lots going on. But in the summer, there's, outside of baseball, it's pretty quiet. So I'll reference sort of maybe older historic photos, Muhammad Ali, things of that nature. But in the fall, right, tons of different sports that are simultaneously in action, and you end up getting a ton of, you know, images to potentially work with or moments to work with. So it's a matter of first assessing, do I want to, oftentimes the first thing to drop will be a screenshot. Um, do I want to work off the screenshot? Do I want to potentially wait for a more professional photo of that moment to come out? Like, do I need to do something immediate or can I wait, 15, 20 minutes?
Mhm.
So that's the first piece. And then sometimes there is only one image. So then you're sort of stuck working off that image. Other times there might be different angles. So it's like, all right, then figuring out what is the right angle that might match whatever it is, the thing that I kind of come up with. And then it's a matter of doing the actual matching. So part of it is sometimes I'll just see something and I'll immediately know the exact piece, and that piece could be something I've personally seen or, a famous piece that, the Mona Lisa. I've seen that in person, but a famous piece of art that maybe I haven't seen in person, Statue of David. Um, so sometimes it's just immediately knowing that. Sometimes it's immediately knowing that it's a piece that I've photographed in a museum. So I have a folder on my phone of it's over 1,200 now images that I've taken at museums around the world. And I've memorized a pretty good amount of sort of what's in so sometimes it's referencing an actual image that isn't famous, but that I've, seen. Sometimes it's noticing like this looks like something in art history. So for the Vanderbilt example, uh, you've got the goalposts that they're sort of carrying down West End, and that is a theme in art history of potentially the crucifixion of matching the goalposts being moved, and it's maybe not knowing the exact painting, but there's tons of, that catalog is massive. So looking through versions of that could match. Um,
Mhm. So
and
how do you
then
do that? So let's say you're looking for the best picture to match the goalpost. Do you look on your phone for pictures you've taken at museums? Are you looking through books or Googling, or like how do you do that?
yeah, so sometimes it's Googling of, okay, if somebody's laying on the ground and it looks like the lamentation, there are 150 sort of versions of the lamentation, and oftentimes the easiest, if it's not one that I know like off the top of my head that I have in my phone, it'll be looking up, the lamentation and then looking through images of the lamentation. Sometimes it's noticing an artist's style, and not knowing the exact piece by that artist. So, or knowing a piece, but that artist might have different versions of the piece. So, during the Olympics, I think everybody saw the image of the surfer that was kind of floating in midair with the surfboard. Like, all right, I don't quite know what I want to match that with. Like, there's no exact image of that that I could match on. I don't quite know the theme in art history, but this vibe of this image is very Salvador Dali. He's got a number of different pieces of things floating in the air and hovering over bodies of water. It's like, all right, let me look through, you could even just be on Google, look through images that Salvador Dali's done. So it's like using my knowledge of art history to know the best place to potentially look if I don't know the exact image I want to work from. And so between all those different methods, something usually ends up clicking. So.
Okay. One of the things I find most fun is when even something that's happening on the periphery of the screenshot or the photo matches what's happening in the periphery of the piece of art that you found. That must be a really fun part for you, not just to match the main action, but to find the image that really completes it in some unexpected way.
Yeah, I think nowadays uh, I'm pretty conservative in terms of how much stuff I put out there. So I try to keep a pretty high editorial bar, and the things that excite me the most are when there's sort of pieces of larger paintings that might match a sports image or multiple things within a sports image that then matches the art instead of just one sort of a one-to-one. So the more layered or the more kind of puns that could be built in with the title or ties to where, maybe if I'm doing a Sabrina Ionescu and do a Brancusi sculpture, both Romanian, like anything that you can tie in that's more than just, okay, this one thing looks like this other thing, becomes fun for me.
Yeah. All right. So can you walk us through what I see as the most recent one that you've posted? And I guess unless you're a Cowboys fan, everybody hates the Cowboys. So the idea of them getting killed by the Lions in their own stadium and a fan throwing up in the concourse, like how did you choose that, like decide that was the zeitgeist, right? To pick this picture to match up, and how did you find the piece of art that matches it? And what are the elements of the artwork that you're most proud of in posting this image?
Well, it's funny. It's always like the lowbrow ones that do the best, which at this point I'm kind of used to. So the idea of somebody vomiting comes up a decent amount, whether it's a fan or during the Olympics, at the end of the marathon or triathlon. Like vomiting has come up over the years of running the account. So I've previously sort of banked images of vomiting. There's give me one second. I'm just going to open the door for my dog. I think my wife just got home. Um, so there's a museum in Germany, name I'm gonna butcher, the Alta Pinocathen. I'll have to look that up after. I'm not like historically trained in art history, so I know I can see it spelled, but I don't know the right way to pronounce things. Um, and there's a painting there by Goya called like the picnic, or I don't know, it's got a translation. And there's all these figures, and then on the other side of the painting, there's somebody throwing up at this picnic. So that one's always been banked for vomiting. And then because I had seen that one, I had previously there are a few other Goya paintings of people vomiting. And then in the past I've sort of looked through this is ridiculous, but look through the catalog of okay, paintings where people are vomiting. And there's
Mhm.
a bunch in sort of medieval art.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I used one during the Olympics. And I had a few others with this one. It matched really well because it got the person doing the gritty, it got the person vomiting, and then there's like this little red seal that matches
Yeah.
the guy's picture on TikTok. So this was less of like I knew I got kind of lucky in the sense that all those things matched, but I did have a little bit of a mental catalog of vomiting paintings already. So it ended up working out.
Yeah, I thought that one was outstanding. Um, so you mentioned some of the lowbrow ones get the biggest reaction. Like, do you know like which of your posts has gotten the biggest number of likes or retweets or whatever, however you measure your reactions?
Yeah, I guess there's different ways that I guess I could measure what I see as successful. Like there's obviously the ones that get the most traction, and usually those are because, excuse me, a larger account, reposted it, or if I do like uh, I'll add the photographer and I'll add the team if it features a team as like a collaborator on Instagram, and then it shows up on both feeds. So I did like it wasn't random. It was like a random Aaron Gordon dunk on the Nuggets. And they accepted the collab, so it showed up for them. And I think they got like 100,000 likes on Instagram. It wasn't like the post wasn't anything special per se, but it ended up getting the most traction because they it was attached to their following. The NFL had tweeted the account during the playoffs last year, and then I like responded with an image of Jason Kelsey, and that one blew up. So yeah, it's oftentimes tied to like wherever the origin of that image might be.
Mhm.
It's like driven by another account, but now the account's pretty big in the sense that if something's good, it'll get a lot of people eyeballs.
Yeah. I mean, my perception, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you mainly have sports fans following you that are being introduced to works of art. Does it work the other way too? Like, have you noticed or heard from people in the art world that are gaining an appreciation for what you do because of the connection to sports?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd say it probably skews a little bit more towards sports fans, but it's a pretty diverse community, which is also fun. Like pretty close to 50-50 men and women. It's pretty global. And then people sort of basketball hits the most because just it's more of a global sport, which makes sense, but there's sort of people that follow all different kinds of sports. And then just sort of looking at the, profile pictures of people that like posts. Yeah, people's of all shapes, sizes, colors. It's kind of fun that the account kind of seems like one of the few places still on social media that everybody can kind of get along and agree on things. Like if you look at the comment section, 99.9% of the comments are like positive, which is not what you really get when you look at it. And that's really the only, not the only, like one of the reasons why it's fun to keep the account running because it does seem to bridge the gap. I've heard from people that, this is the only account that I can, talk to my spouse about because one of us likes sports and one of us likes art, and this is the perfect bridge. And then I've had teachers tell me they, have used the posts to help teach their students art history. It's like the educational angle. So I didn't initially set out to, run the account because of that, but it does seem like a fun reason to kind of keep it going. So
Yeah. A couple things that so you do get some people that are like negative, like are they offended by the connection or something? Or what type of negative comment could you ever get on one of your pieces?
I think people are just bored and looking
Yeah.
for a reaction online, which
This would be a troll.
should
Do you
come
ever
with.
hear from the athletes that you're depicting, or if I don't know if you use living artists, do you ever hear from the artists?
Yeah, every once in a while. Bisa Butler, she's interacted with the account. She's awesome. Uh, there was a guy, I did one for Oregon football this week. I was randomly in upstate New York a few years back, and I think it was like this community center in Hudson, New York, and there was an exhibition where I guess a local photographer had a bunch of photos of fireflies that was time lapsed, and they like look electric, sort of green, kind of like Oregon, a bunch of Oregon fans congregating in the
Mhm.
stadium. So I had that saved in my folder and sort of mentally banked. So when they stormed the field, I did the connection and found the artist and tagged him. and then I saw he followed the account after, so that was cool. I hear from athletes every once in a while. I'm trying to think, like Andre Drummond slid into the DMs randomly and was like, "I like your account." I'm like, cool. I sent him
Well,
one of
do
his.
they ever request that you like feature them or
I think he asked for one, so I made
yeah.
him one. There's probably varying degrees of people that I'd be willing to do one. Um, but yeah, there are a handful of athletes that follow. Caitlin Clark follows. That's exciting. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's by far the most exciting athlete. But also, I don't. It's kind of hard to keep track of like I don't because they Elon broke the whole verification system, so it's not easy to know who's actually following.
Got it. Okay. You mentioned like this is not your day job, but how much time do you spend on it? And are there ways, when we spoke last week, I think there are ways that you are able to monetize this occasionally.
Yeah, definitely not my day job. That'd be scary if it was. And I don't know if I ever want it to be because I don't think it'd be fun anymore.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, experimenting with like printing out pieces and figuring out the licensing side to potentially write a book. Um, I've done collabs with teams and I did something with Apple TV to promote their Patriots and Messi documentaries. So like things like that make sense. It's like a documentary is technically sports art. The last thing I want to do is start making posts that are promoting I don't know, betting or beer. Like it doesn't tie into the kind of content I want to put out there. And I started a Substack, so I like doing long form writing. I'm a writer in a past life, and I guess that never really leaves you. So it's fun to go a little bit more in depth and have a larger canvas than social media might provide to talk through some of the process and for things that are happening in art and sports. So yeah, I think it's nice like a little bit of side money coming in. It's funny. I think a lot of people think that I do this full time. 'Cause I guess when Elon introduced like the revenue sharing, and then I was advertising a bunch of like people getting large checks. I think all told last year, the amount of money that came in from that was like maybe 2,500 bucks, not even maybe 2,000, which
Uh,
like okay, but I don't think I can live on. I don't think I can live on.
yeah.
So yeah, I have a full-time job, which I really enjoy, and they enjoy the account too. So it's good. And it's in sports.
Oh, that's
So
great.
people are surprised that I'm not from the art world, but I'm from the sports world. So.
Tell us, like, what do you do for your full-time job?
Yeah, so the company I work for, we're the official partner of a number of the professional sports leagues, and we do data collection and then basically provide tooling and content and data feeds. So a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that when you're watching a sports broadcast, you might not think about, but things like what the announcers are talking about, the graphics that show up, uh, you know, score bugs and notifications on your phone, anything that requires sort of sports data. So I've worked in sports for a while and was a producer on the Olympics, worked at DraftKings on the product side, and sort of realized in my career that no matter what you want to build in sports, you need data of some capacity. So it's like, all right, let's work for the company that does that. So I've been there almost 7 years now. Yeah, it's called Sport Radar. It's a cool place. We do really cool stuff and spend a lot of time working with the leagues to figure out their strategy and figure out what are sort of new data sets and new things that can be built off of it.
So you've got your foot in really the art and the science of sports, almost literally. Pretty cool. Um, I know that people, as you know, that as analytics has become such a part of sports that they'll say, well, the art has been lost, but you're maintaining both sides.
Maintaining both sides. One of the projects I'm working on right now puts like a pretty fun visual layer on top of actual like movement data. So that's kind of combine the art and sports side of things. So yeah, I'm hitting it on both angles.
Yeah. So if people are interested in maybe they're not following you already or they're following you in one place and aren't aware of the others, like where are all the places people can follow your work?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram, a Twitter, I have Threads and Blue Sky, which are I guess two other platforms, and then I have a Substack, just artbutmakeitsports.com, which is where I do some of the long form stuff. But yeah, mostly if people like want to interact with the account, I mostly spend time on Twitter, so it's the main place.
Okay. Yeah, and people, I know you kind of take submissions, right? Or ideas, suggestions from people, um, just for a post, but also I think you mentioned that you did like a schedule reveal for a team. So if people are listening to this and they want to work with you, potentially, what are the best ways for them to contact you?
Yeah, just in the DMs of any of the platforms. Yeah, I did schedule release with the Colts. That was a lot of fun because you sort of aren't tethered to the time constraints of but wanting to get a post out, immediately. So I have, more time to build in layers of this. It's not just the visual, but when they're playing the Titans, if I can match an image of the fall of the Titans painting to a Titans player falling, and so that collaboration was a lot of fun. But yeah, I check uh, I check the DMs. I think LJ at artbutmakeitsports.com if you want to send an email. Uh, Always around.
All right. Well, I see you got your Yankee sweatshirt. They're playing. So last question, like tonight, you're watching TV. I guess you got your phone. You're watching to see what else is going on in the world of sports. Like, what's your rhythm of how often you want to post something? Like, do you feel an obligation to post something if there's a big moment? Um, how much of your brain is this hobby of yours occupying on a big night in sports?
Tonight's a big one. I'm going to be at the Knicks preseason game, watching, testing some of the stuff I built for work, and then paying attention to the Yankee game a little bit. Uh, I yeah, in the past it used to be I'd have to like find the images and like be paying attention, but now the community is so big that people just send images. So if like something's happening outside of what I'm paying attention to, my phone will just light up and then I can see it and do a post off of it, which is great. So yeah, oftentimes when I'm like at a sporting event, I'm watching that sporting event, like the Liberty game on Sunday. I was watching that game, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll when I get home, I'll do posts from Sunday NFL. But yeah, it's those the big events like playoffs. You want to be in the moment. You always want to be in the moment, but it makes it a lot. I don't know. It's hard to be on 24/7, 365. So my
No
battles,
doubt.
my battles these days.
Yeah, you've got a family. I know. So, LJ, thank you for joining us. This is a lot of fun. I love what you do. Um, sports is supposed to be fun, and art should be viewed by more people, right? So, like, you're doing something that's benefiting both communities. I love ways that sports interacts with the rest of culture, and this is a prime example of that. So, congratulations on building something that really took off, probably beyond your wildest dreams. And keep it up. And looking forward to opportunities for Vanderbilt to work with you on some projects in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, to hopefully more Vanderbilt moments like we've had this season. So
Yeah, man, I think you had at least three from the Alabama game. I love the goalpost, the first carrying it. You had one just like a yellow piece of metal art that looked like the
uh,
what was remaining of the goalpost in the stadium. And then there was the police helicopter footage of the black and white alien looking images. You had a great matchup of that too. So yeah, we got to keep providing you some more content.
yeah, I
Have
try
fun
to.
tonight, LJ. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Take
Bye.
care.